let's talk about concepts of corporate social responsibility in China and in the United States. So in the United States, CSR basically means that a company needs to make a contribution to society.
Yes.
And CSR is often based on a concept of a social contract, that to give that degree of freedom to operate, companies need to contribute back to the community, need to have a corporate social responsibility and do a certain amount of things and be concerned about their own operations and the social impacts.
And also on a sustainable track.
On a sustainability being a core concept today in CSR. Does it mean the same things in China? It's been interesting to me that suddenly in the last 5 to 10 years, CSR has come to be a very common term in China.
That's true. Yes, conceptually, there's no difference. We simplify the CSR in terms of the 3 Ps responsible for people, for planet, and also for the profit of the firm. And they are intertangled, and they should move side by side instead of forfeiting the other at the gain of 1 P, which is profit. So, but again, the priorities is vastly different due to the fact, first of all, China has a blend of political and economic and social system that is highly different to that of the United States, or some even beyond the understanding of certain laymen with little knowledge about China. For example, in China, there has been clearly distinctive difference between the ownership structure of companies. There are SOEs, which are state-owned companies, which are completely funded by the government, and they are expected to perform whatever directives that the government want to give them to. So therefore, naturally, they think that as long as I follow the government order, I'm doing full-fledged social
Whatever the government
responsibility.
tells me is my CSR, is my corporate responsibility.
That's right, because the government represents the people. So that's their logic. If the government asks them to raise the gas price against the declining trend of the global market, they have to do so for a bigger purpose. Well, because the government need more people, more money from its people, so they serve as a running dog. And on the other hand, we also have a significant of the business landscape occupied by FIEs, which are foreign invested enterprises. They take roughly 10% of the Chinese economy.
So this would be Apple's China subsidiary, or
Apple,
Nestle's,
Oracle, even Boeing China, GM China, etc., etc. So they are capitalist in nature, but they are foreign. They are considered to be guests in China, but they reside in China as a legal entity of that country. And we also have...
Are they expected to have corporate responsibility, or is it simply part of their own corporate philosophy? Because many of them tout their CSR in China as well as elsewhere.
They are expected even to a higher degree, because simply you are a deep pocket as a big multinational, and simply because you have a institutionalized CSR activities. So therefore, each time during big events like earthquake, the foreign companies receive a higher expectation. And in the meantime, you have Chinese, the grassroots private companies. So in terms of number...
A growing sector.
Yes. In terms of number, we have the more than 30 million companies. Only for the FIEs, if you talk about number, that's 650,000. So therefore, given the different ownership structure, and they adopt different rules, and they have different motivations to perform, although the shared understanding of CSR.
Well, what about the indigenous Chinese companies, this growing sector. Is CSR a widely discussed phenomenon amongst those companies?
Among those companies, we also have to make a difference in that those companies who are widely connected with the international market, for example, suppliers of Apple, or the spare part manufacturers for GM, they are naturally influenced, sometimes required, to have a more systematic, if not higher, level of CSR enforcement.
Not just labor standards that meet certain criteria or environmental standards, but to actually be engaged in the community as well.
Engagement in the community, the transparency of their books, the efforts they make in ensuring the QC and QA, in adopting ISO standard, etc., global compact. So they are under the pressure to make them, say, the more socially responsible in order to correspond to the value chain requirement over the ethical standard by the purchasers.
One of the most interesting types of companies I've been tracking are those larger Chinese companies that are beginning themselves to go overseas.
That's
and
right.
Operate in Europe or operate in the United States. And it seems to me that they really have to understand CSR to a much greater extent, perhaps, than the rest of domestic Chinese companies that haven't yet gone international.
There has been a learning process. 10 years ago, this type of CSR requirement was more or less regarded as being a hostile manner against China's export, against China's investing outbound programs, because that was accused as a non-tariff barrier.
The expectation that they will do a variety of these things when they come operate in the United States, that's just our way of keeping Chinese companies out.
That's right.
That's how China felt.
So they also blame the political circles in devising the ethical justifications to shovel China off the leveling field for competition. And but as recent as from 2006, the Ministry of Commerce took the lead to revise the kind of political orientation in determining the normative judgment of CSR. They regarded as a positive force to push Chinese companies for brand building and for global citizenship and for them to upgrade their technology to respond to the general expectation of the stakeholders around the world.
Where is this pressure coming from? Is it coming from trade associations? Is it coming from new government laws that are saying, Chinese companies or those in the export sector should be more sensitive to labor standards, sensitive to environment, sensitive to other chemical exposure, things like that?
The immediate pressure comes from overseas. As China is getting more and more interlocked with the global market, there are increasing number of campaigns to burn China-made as sweatshops. And therefore, this has been translated by the outsourcing functions of those multinationals to be a supplier code of conduct. And the fact, actually, in 1993, the Levi's put out from China sourcing because of the malpractice in the supplier was an alarming signal to the Chinese managers. And on the other hand, there has been increasing number of dialogues at the governmental levels between European and U.S. government agencies. And also UN agencies are also playing a very important role in, for example, International Labour Organization, Global Compact, Dow Jones Sustainable Index, UNDP are doing the work, first of all, to disseminate the awareness over the importance of CSR because the competition landscape is now changing around the world.
Thank you very much, Liu.